The fourth one is also born out of my tragic experience. It's noble to die in robber class wars. The fifth robber class myth is the Federal Reserve System cares about you. The sixth robber class myth, it's a privilege to pay taxes to the robber class. The seventh robber class myth is healthcare, quality education, housing, and healthy food are also privileges. But they're only privileges to us, right? Right? If we don't have those things, we're told in this country, if you can't afford a good education, if you can't afford health care, if you can't afford a nice, warm, dry house, you know, if you can't afford healthy food and clean water, then there's something wrong with you. There's not anything wrong with the system. There's something wrong with you. I don't have health care. I think I'm a very smart, hardworking person. You know, so it's not because we're not smart and hardworking. It's because the system is systemic. 27,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. Well, they're sick, but they don't have health insurance, so they die. How can that happen in a country like, well, I know how it can happen in a country like America, but how can it happen in the mythic America, where we're the best country in the world? How can 1 million children go to bed hungry just in this country? Thousands, millions of people without shelter. You know there's more empty housing units than there are homeless people? And I just want to, if you're a libertarian, I want to disagree with you on one thing, that human rights are more important than property rights. And the 10th robber class myth is 19 Muslims with box cutters caused 9/11. And no matter what we believe about 9/11, whether you believe that Dick Cheney was in the basement in his bunker writing the plan between heart attacks, or we call them knee heart attacks because he always has those heart attacks in the knee, or whether you believe the official story or anywhere in between. I'm somewhere in between there, farther away from the official story for sure, but I don't believe that Dick Cheney was there in his bunker planning it. But whatever we believe, that's the foundational myth of today. You know, because of the exploitation of 9/11, even if it was Osama bin Laden and 19 Muslims with box cutters, even if we believe the official story, why did we invade Iraq and Afghanistan? You know, if we believe the official story, 16 of the hijackers were Saudi Arabian. Why aren't we in Saudi Arabia if we believe the official story? So 9/11 happened. We know it happened. You know, that's not in dispute. We know 9/11 happened, but since 9/11, we've had our own freedoms here in America taken away. You know, it really, really burns me up to see the protests in Iran, which I can't tell really what is happening there. If they're legitimate protests, then, you know, we support people's protests. You know, they might be legitimate and they might be fomented by the CIA. You know, so whatever's happening in Iran, the newscasters are calling those protesters brave and courageous, and they're standing up for their rights. And when we do that in America, they call us kooks. You know, they never even showed the protests in the RNC when those robo-cops were tear gassing the protesters, running them over with their horses, brutalizing them. You know, when I'm arrested standing up for our rights, and I just want to say, you know, to the people in the media who call us kooks and extremists and radicals, when I'm getting arrested for my rights, I'm also getting arrested for your rights, you know? So whatever happened, we know what happened on 9/11, but what it was ever behind it, they misused it. We had and I don't have to tell you guys, but we had the will of the world on our side. Most of the world was on our side. Instead of stepping back and saying, why did that happen to us? You know, maybe we could change our lifestyle. Instead of being, you know, they don't call us citizens anymore, they call us consumers. Instead of telling us to rush out and buy, spend, how about figuring out how we can be responsible citizens of the world? And that might have cured the problem. Instead of invading two countries that had nothing to do with 9/11, now we have torture, and we have Abu Ghraib, and we have Guantanamo. We have the USA Patriot Act. We have Military Commissions Act, the FISA Modernization Act. We have a theory called, I always get the order wrong, but I think it's called preventive indefinite detention, where you don't even have to commit a crime. You know, they just think, they have their thought police, I guess, and can figure out that you're going to commit a crime, and you can be preventively detained for that. The Extreme Radicalization Act. So there's so many ways. Oh, and about those protests in Iran too. You know, oh, stolen elections. Whenever somebody, the robber class doesn't want to win in another country, it's a stolen election. I wish the media would have paid attention to our stolen elections.
One of Cindy's myths that I find troubling is her evidence support for the so-called 9/11 truth movement, which says that either Al-Qaeda did not commit the attacks on 9/11 or that the U.S. government knowingly allowed it. I agree with Professor Noam Chomsky, who thinks that the U.S. government criminal investigation into 9/11 is basically sound, and that all these endless doubts and suspicions about the findings are a huge diversion from our anti-war work. More about this in a future program. That's our show for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.